Hi, we're here with Cindy to share her experience and her insight, expertise, advice on TOK exhibition and essay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cindy, and I'm currently the TOK instructor at IB ToK.
Cindy, can you tell us briefly about your background as TOK tutor and your experience with helping students succeed in exhibition and essay?
Yeah, sure. Most of the time, I've been meeting students one-on-one, mostly due to the nature of TOK, where we have to submit assignments that are very personal. So throughout the years, I've been meeting with more than 100 students, preparing both for the exhibition as well as the TOK prescribed title essay.
Roughly how many cases of students have you covered?
I would probably say a little bit over 100 as of now.
Over the 4 years that we've worked together.
Right.
From your experience, what kind of support do students typically lack from school when it comes to completing TOK exhibition and essays?
Yeah, most of the time I think students would know this a lot more themselves because they usually come to me feeling like I don't think I get a lot of support from school. From my experience and just meeting a lot of students, I think most of the time it comes with not being taught on especially how to write the actual essay. They cover a lot of materials in terms of going over the different areas of knowledge, the TOK concepts, the scope, the methods, but they actually just don't know how to incorporate that into their writing itself when it also comes to coming up with a real life example or even an object for the exhibition to link that with all the concepts. So I would say that is one of the most, parts of the course that not a lot of students get a lot of help on.
What about the sufficiency of teacher feedback in one-on-one, let's say, settings? For example, IA is similarly an assignment where teachers are supposed to give feedbacks on the first drafts. What about TOK?
Right. TOK also, you do get a lot of checkup points. That is part of the mandatory, part of the assignment where you have to write an outline, teachers check that, and then you start with the first draft, teachers check that, and then you submit the final draft. In terms of the quantity as well as the quality of feedback, though, I've seen really polarized sort of characteristics of teacher where some teachers are very picky. So when it comes to the exhibition, which is an internally assessed assignment, it becomes really challenging for students because they have to fulfill those expectations that their teacher is giving out. On the other hand, I've also seen teachers who do not give a lot of feedback when they're actually supposed to. And so some of the times they give out very generic feedback saying, you just need to explain this more, or, why? And they just throw in that question with a question mark and that's it. So a lot of students are like, I don't really know what the teacher means by this.
So to summarize, there are realistically support covered to students in schools in terms of teaching the fundamentals of TOK, including areas of knowledge, themes, and so on.
Right.
But not really how to connect those concepts into written works.
Right. Yeah, it's very challenging also because students really do not study anything similar to TOK until their first year of DP. And so when it comes to their sort of situation in DP1 where they're exposed to a lot of things, they don't really comprehend a lot of the stuff because they don't even know what it's going to be used for and how they should be using it. And again, when we go up to DP2, they don't really do a lot of explanation anymore. And from the beginning of the semester, now you just go into writing the essay itself. So I would say there aren't a lot of times at school when they actually teach, nor are there a lot of times when they give a lot of feedback.
Which is why there are definitely aspects students are supposed to manage on their own,
Right.
And that is actually putting all the concepts they have learned in class into a well-organized, logically flowing essay structure of exhibition and essay.
Right.
And I guess that's where we can help, right?
Yeah, of course.
So I'm very proud to say that over the 4 years of work that we have accomplished together, you've managed to put out a series of online lectures that cover from the very beginning of TOK, all the way to submitting a full exhibition and essay with examples, as well as study notes. Can we talk a little bit about these resources that we are now providing to students?
The resources that we have are designed by me, of course. And so whatever I teach and the way I instruct students in my one-on-one class is very much the same with the contents that are provided in those materials. And so like what Harry just said, we do cover everything from the basics up until the point where you can complete writing your full essay and as well as the exhibition. And so when we say like we cover the basics, we start literally from covering the different TOK concepts as well as the area of knowledge. And it's not just that from, okay, now let's just write the essay. When it comes to the essay as well, we cover, okay, how do we actually break this apart so that we're covering different paragraphs that we need to write, as well as formulating our thesis statement or our argument statement, as well as, of course, the details or the evidence that we need to have in order to make those points. And we also do look at examples as well. So if students are like, I still don't really know what the full thing is supposed to look like, by looking at examples, that should, help students prepare a little bit more so that they can write their own exhibition and essay.
So we're basically targeting exactly what the school is failing to provide support in. We're telling them how to actually write, put your understanding to writings.
Right, essentially, yeah.
Of course, besides our support resources, there are obviously YouTube support videos and blogs that share insight. How is ours different from the generic resources?
I think before that, like students, before they come to us, they probably try to do research on their own. And once they get a prompt and they just don't know how to approach it, or they try to figure it out on their own, there are, of course, a lot of resources, I would say. But the difference is that a lot of those YouTube videos or a lot of those, online blogs or like writings that they tell you how to write a TOK essay, sometimes it's very generic. Some of the ones that I've read, it's not really anchored to the prompts that are given out for that particular year, which also makes it different for us because once we cover those and we work on covering the TOK essay or the exhibition, it is very anchored to the prompt that you have brought to us, as well as the overall holistic composition of our course. So going back to what I said earlier about how it covers the basics all the way until how we write the essay or the exhibition, I would say that is the biggest part that makes our materials very different from the ones that are already available online from other sources.
And we've already emphasized this, but ours is a complete series from the beginning to all the way to the end. So you don't need to search around different sources, but just stick to ours from the beginning to the end.
Right.
I think even if we do provide all these resources, the students will always have areas they get stuck on, make some mistakes in. And if we were to advise on one aspect that all students make mistakes on, whether they have fantastic support from the school or tutors or online resources, what is one mistake everyone makes?
I think a lot of mistakes, as mentioned, as part of like the nature of TOK assignments, it is a take-at-home essay, which means they try to provide you with quite a long time to complete the full writing itself. So time management is of course important, but beyond that, I think it's actually the planning stage. I always emphasize this to all of my students, and I kind of just tell them from the beginning, like it's gonna take you maybe weeks or days to really think of even one idea, but that's completely natural because we want something that's very unique and very different. So if it's an idea that you come up with on the spot, it's most likely not the case that it's gonna be something very interesting. So a lot of the mistakes that I would say students make is just taking a very short time planning and just going into the essay itself. But what turns out to be the case is that later we need to scratch that all out and we need to start over, which is a bunch of, a huge waste of time. So I would say planning ahead and getting started ahead of time is always the important thing.
So don't be too confident on your ability to whip it.
Right.
Great work out right on the last minute, but start early.
Right.
I guess that applies to a lot of assignments that all IB students will face, not
Right.
limited to TOK,
Right.
but especially for TOK.
Right.
Right. So one advice you have given was not to procrastinate. And what that elucidates is, even if you're an international student with non-fluent English proficiency, that is not really the first area you need to improve on, but time management. and stuff.
Right. Yeah, because as long as you have the ideas, there are so many people who can help you as long as you have the ideas, especially when it comes to essay construction or sentence construction. There will be a lot of support, but essentially the ideas have to come from you, which is why we can never procrastinate because it's never going to turn out well.
Just came up of the mind,
Yeah.
and I know this is not on the script,
Yeah.
but ChatGPT, AI usage.
Right.
I know you cover this quite well in your resources.
Yes.
But just one advice on GPT, I think would be really practical to the students.
I know at school, people are saying different things about your usage of GPT, but I do think a lot of students use it nonetheless.
Yeah.
And so for our TOK exhibition and the essay, I do actually encourage students to utilize those resources because, it's given to us, right? So the part that we would really want to use that is when we come up with object examples or even our real life situation examples. So when it comes to coming up with like original ideas, something that is going to make your essay different from everyone else's, we need that originality. So because we as just one individual are really limited with the scope of or the amount of things that we can think of, we always want to start with what we can think of ourselves, but then we want to prompt ChatGPT and ask like, okay, what are some things related to this, but some things that are not this, right? And it's going to just give you a bunch of lists and you can start your research there. So that's how I would say you should really utilize ChatGPT for that part of writing.
Great. Okay, so I asked an abrupt question out of the script. Sorry about that. But we have a lot more advice and in lecture style, study note style, lots of advices and insight, and those you can find on our resources. But for today, I think we'll halt our interview here, and hope to see you all on our lectures and study notes.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.